Salvete omnes. Let's try this again. Hopefully it'll work. Talking about chapter 32. As I mentioned at the beginning of the last video, the concepts in this chapter aren't too difficult. We have formation and comparison of adverbs. As you'll see, it's pretty straightforward. This will consist of words that are from the third declension. Or let me back up a little bit here. Words in the first and second declension will simply take E for their adverb. As you'll see here, for example, we have longus, longa, longum as our adjective. For our adverb, we simply just drop the ending and put E. Same thing here. We have a somewhat of an irregular, at least this one, but these two are regular. First, second declension adjective endings. We simply drop the ending, the declension ending at E, and the same thing here. As you'll see with third declension adjectives like fortis, here you can see our regular adjectives here. With third declension, we add iter. So it all comes back to one of the basics of Latin. As you know, you have to learn the declension to which nouns and adjectives belong. So you need to know that puella is first declension, and amicus is second declension, and pater, mater, mother, father are third declension, and then group those words and their endings, given the fact that Latin is an inflected language accordingly. Conceptually, if that's still a little bit less proficient for you than you would like, you just have to memorize these as learning vocabulary. Going back to the other concepts here, we had in the last chapter, we had ferro, which means to carry or to go to, or even to endure in terms of suffering. As the chapter pointed out, we have some other irregular verbs of some fair frequency, and these, the fact that they're irregular, they need to be memorized. Proviso clauses, despite the term is actually fairly easy, as we'll see, and you'll want to read through this here. This simply consists, one page too far here, of using this word in particular, as we'll see, do modo, and just translating as provided that. So it's really just learning this vocab, and you'll see a couple examples here. I shall not, or I will not be afraid, provided that, do modo, you remain here. So that one is fairly straightforward. Here's another simple example. We will be, this is the future form of to be, happy, third declension, accusative plural, adjective ending, provided that, or so long as you do not leave. So this one is actually fairly straightforward. So what I want to do is kind of go back to the beginning of the chapter and just allow you, so I'm not going to read through this, you'll have to read through it on your own, but I want to at least make sure that you can see the screen, so you can pause the video and read through these pages before I turn to the exercises. So I'll just give you pause for a few seconds on each page, and again you can pause the video, take a screenshot, read through the material before you continue. We will be coming back to this list during the lesson, so this is going to be an important page to refer to. And here, of course, we have the vocabulary, which you'll want to learn. Um, for each test, as I mentioned before, you will have a selection of the vocabulary from the chapters that we've been working on. In this case, chapters 31, 32, 33. Simple matching, those of you that took Latin via remote learning last semester, you'll see it's fairly straightforward. You'll definitely want to learn these words. As I mentioned, as you may know, there's also the companion website, wheelocks.com, which has some audio for each vocabulary, which may be helpful for memorizing the words. All right. I want to go back. Actually, I think I went through that one. I will not be covering these. You will not be tested on these, but let me at least slow it down in case you want to practice these on your own and ask questions about them. Okay, so as the rule, we're going to focus on the Sententia Antiqua as well as some of the longer reading passages. Don't forget, there are so-called self-tutorial exercises in the back of the book, also with the answers, so you may want to work through those. In addition, of course, to many resources online to practice these concepts, including latintutorial.com, which I highly recommend. Um, that person does a great job of explaining the concepts, giving simple examples, a highly helpful web YouTube resource. Let's take a look at number unos here. So, occasio non facile praebitur, sed facile ac repente amititur. So, occasio can mean, this is where we get the word occasion. So we can translate it as occasion. It can also mean opportunity. Don't forget, let's see, is this one of our, no, it's not one of our vocabulary words. So if we don't know what this is, we can use Whitaker's words, of course, to look it up. But we can translate this either as opportunity or occasion. And then we have occasio non facile. Here we have the verb in the passive, aristur, third person singular, and it means provided. Let's see, here we go. So here is our praebio, our vocabulary. It means to offer or to provide. Provender, it's not a very common word in English, but once again, the words in parentheses, those are possible translations. So you would choose one of these, not both, obviously. And then the words in parentheses, those are words in English derived from that Latin word. So we can choose either offer or provide as our meaning here. So we have an opportunity is not easily offered or provided, but sort of the implied subject is the opportunity, but it is easily and suddenly, this means suddenly, not what we seek. Amitur really means sent away. You can hear our Italian greyhound who's getting a little senile, barking in the background. Close the door there. He's deaf, so if I tell him to stop barking, he will stop barking. So amitur, mito, mitere, misi, misum, and this is our a, which is our phrasal verb in English, to send away, also in the passive. So we have an opportunity. Opportunity is not easily offered, but it is sort of implied, but it is easily and suddenly, literally sent away or lost. In other words, carpe diem, seize the moment. There aren't many opportunities. You have to kind of recognize when those windows of opportunity are available. All right, moving on to number 2. Nobis convivere iam liutius non potes, noli rimanere id non ferimus. And here we have nobis cum, which means with us, to live now, um, any longer, not you are able, don't remain or stay, um, this or here, not we endure. So this must be another reference to Cicero and Catiline and the conspiracy, which we've seen many times in the Wheelock's Latin. It certainly is one of the more famous episodes in Roman history. So he must be talking to Catiline here. So we have now, so the potes is second person singular, addressing to Catiline, I believe. So now you are not able, or now you no longer can live with us. In other words, you need to leave Rome and go into exile. So now, Yam, you, S, are no longer able or no longer can um, live any longer with us. Don't stay. Don't stay. So here we have the imperative form. Don't remain. Don't stay. Id is, in other words, you're staying here. Is what the id's referring to. We will no longer endure it, or we will no longer tolerate it. We will no longer carry your presence here among us. So id non ferimus. Number 3, vis recte vivere quis non. It's a nice one of the nice things about this chapter. It has a little bit more variety in the authors. So here's a nice one by Horace, 65 BC to 8 AD. Second person singular, vis. Now this is one of the disadvantages of doing it remotely. Learning is going back and forth. It's a little bit awkward, to be completely honest. But here we have one of our, let's see, did I go too far? Or didn't go far enough? I think this is listed here. Yeah, here we go. So here we have volo, vis, volt, volimos, voltis, volunt, and we have the subjunctive as well as imperfect here. So let's hold on to this because this is one of the verbs in this chapter. You can see vis is second person singular. That means to want. So we'll get the word volition. In fact, there's the vocabulary word. It can also mean to wish, want, be willing, and so forth. Interesting word, important word. And so you want to live rightly. Who does not? So we're missing the verb here, but sort of implied. So you want, vis, second person singular, to live. They have straight or right, but I would say you want to live rightly. In other words, a morally right. Oftentimes for Horace, the right life is the happy life. So we sort of have that sense there. So you want to live rightly. Who does not? So that one's fairly straightforward. It's a nice one, I think. Simple but meaningful. Quatuor plus novisti quid faciendum sit. Here we have the verb in the third person subjunctive singular. Remember, keeping in mind we can often translate it still in the indicative mood. So plus means more. Isti is second person singular, has something to do with to know. In this case, it's knew. So you knew more what ought to have been done. So we have to kind of be a little bit creative. In other words, you knew what should have been done, but maybe we don't have the context here. Terence often is somewhat comedic, but clearly somebody knew something. They had enough information, enough knowledge, what should have been done, what needed to be done, but perhaps somebody didn't do it. Another, I think, important distinction that we learn in reading the classics, there's reason, information, and knowledge, or to be more precise, information and knowledge as an activity of reason. But then we still have will or agency, or our actions, which we feel that divide within us. The ancients knew it better than just as good as anybody. In fact, they pretty much invented the dualistic nature of man, that man lives a twofold existence, both physically and spiritually, or biologically and intellectually. Getting the two to coalesce and to work together is one of the hard parts of living, quite frankly. So we put all together is you knew, so we need to recognize this as perfect past tense, you knew more. It was you knew more what had to be done, or what must or should have been done. All right, number 5. Mihi veri dixit quid velet. This also is one of our words here. So, in fact, we see it right here is the infinitive form of to want or to wish. So we go back to our chart here. Let's see, I don't see it here. Is it on another page? Yeah, here we go. So velit here, present subjunctive, volt velit. So to keep that in mind is, it's kind of hard to summarize all the different usages of the subjunctive in Latin, but it's one of those things. Keeping in mind, we would just put it in the regular indicative in English. So we put all it together. Keep that in mind, what that word means. And to me, indeed, he or she or it spoke what he wished. So we put it all together is he or he told me truly or truthfully what he wished, or what he wished. So it's fairly straightforward. Again, the nice thing about this chapter is it's fairly. I would even say that I hate to use the word easy because it's Latin. Latin's never easy, but I think these sentences are fairly. They're short enough where I think they're more manageable. Maybe sometimes the case with Latin or foreign language. So pretty straightforward. We've had this. We should all feel comfortable with the perfect. Isti, imos, istis, eron, principal part. Dico, dicere, dixi, dictum. So truly or verily, I say to you, think of the King James Bible, and Jesus talks about verily. It comes from this Latin word. So you said to me truly what, or he said to me truly what he wanted. Maybe it's a reference to friendship, where we tend to speak our heart, speak our soul, speak our mind. We don't always do that with people, perhaps because society doesn't want those kinds of intimacies. At any rate, number 6, pares cum paribus facilime congregantur. This is where we get the word congregation. If you went to church on Sunday, perhaps you think of yourself as part of a congregation. It means to gather into a flock. So pares cum paribus. This is one of our words, I believe. Let's see here. Here it is. So par, if you play golf, pares. So we're going to translate this as equal or like. So keep that in mind. Go back to our example here. Now here we have it in the plural form. So equals with equals easily are being gathered together. So again, we can get rid of the being, but so two birds of a feather flock together. So equals gather easily together with equals. So two birds of a feather flock together. Classic proverb about friendship. Number 7, septem. Magis means more than, so this is a comparative form, which is talked about in the chapter, but I think we've had it before. Tu te is the accusative form of tu, you. Quam, as pointed out, we've had this before, but I think reiterated in this chapter, is we use quam when making some comparison. So this is worthwhile to recall or to read or to remember, especially the examples. So calm can have other meanings, but it's being used comparatively here in conjunction with the theme in the chapter. So I love you more than my own eyes. So I love, amo, you, te, more than, magis quam, more than my own eyes. What does that mean? Well, yeah, that I can't believe it. Isn't that true of love? I think it is. That beauty truly is in the eye of the beholder. That what one person sees isn't what another person sees. So it's not love is not simply with our physical eyes, but with our inner heart. So the eyes tell us one thing, but our heart tells us another, because if love were simply physical, people would have the same emotions for similar objects, which clearly isn't the case, especially when it comes to love. So perhaps that's its meaning. Number 8, men easily believe what they want to. So men, libenter is one of our adverbs here. So liber, let's see, do they have that word here? Let's see, I think we go back. So freely, let's see here. So liber, I don't see that word particularly here. So anyways, it does mean freely. It's just the ending. I thought they had it there, but it's not. So we go back here to our example. It is a third. Here it uses adverb, so we're going to use ter because it's the adverb of comparison. So men. Whoa, something just came down. It's really raining out here. The umbrella from the backyard just flew into the front yard. I feel like I'm in the Wizard of Oz here. Well, it's raining cats and dogs. I can't go get it now. So let's think about this. At least it didn't come through the window. You definitely would have heard it. So men freely believe that what they want. How true is that? By Caesar. So men freely believe, credo, that which they want. So again, another very simple sentence, but very meaningful. Number 9, many things. Multa. Invenire means to happen. So again, we're using the italics here. It is where we get the word to come out, like an event, but eventus, we have a lot of wind right now, eventus. So keep in mind we're going to use happen. So literally much happens to human beings or to people who want or excuse me, what they want and what they don't want. So many things happen to human people or to human beings, what they want and what they don't want. So yeah, there we go. Or much happens to human beings, what they want and what they don't want. So man is somewhat of a conflicted being, wants one thing but desires another. And number 10, again, as a rule, we'll go up to number 10 here. So concilio, we've had many times. Remember, it can mean plan, purpose, also judgment, depending on the context here. I think what's important about this one is to recognize there is a macron, which tells us it's in the ablative, because concilium is a neuter noun. So with judgment or with the plan, here we have melios, which means better. If you go back to our list here, which I encourage you to do, or at least print it out, here we have melios right here. So bene, melios, that means better. So we're going to translate that as better. So we get the word amelioration, which means to improve or improvement. We go back here to our examples that with judgment, contendere means to contend. So we are better able to contend and to win, literally, and also to victory, than by anger. So instead of getting angry, have a plan, stick to it. Plan, concilium is rational, whereas anger tends to be irrational, tends to affect or cloud our judgment. So we are able, so with judgment, concilio, we are able to contend and also to win better than by anger. I do like that by anger, or I guess you could say then with anger as well, but it is in the ablative comparison with quant. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at. So believe it or not, for this particular chapter, I decided we're gonna skip this one because I thought for a change the shorter ones are nice by Marshall. So we have quid mihi redat quaeris linei nomentanos, hoc mihi redit ager te linei non vedia. So Marshall, I think he's very interesting based on satire. We've seen him before, one of his epigrams. So what do we have here? Again, we want to follow, the information down here. So we don't really have anything on the next page. But so quid, as we know, means what. Redat means to give back. So what you ask, Lenos, or Lenos, I guess. Right? So what, Lenos, you ask, does my farm give back to me? Nomentanos. This farm gives back to me, Lenos, that I don't need to see you. And so does Lenos really wonder why Marshall takes so many country vacations? And so you ask, quaevris, like a question. You ask, Lenos, what does my farm, Nomentanos, give back to me? Well, I will tell you, that my farm this farm gives back to me. So this farm, Hager, gives back to me, Lenos, that I don't need to see you, non videotape. Ouch. Next one here is, we've also seen this as well, at least thematically in earlier chapters. So nil rigitas et vis, excuse me, mamarque poeta videre quidquid vis esto du modo. So here we have our proviso clause finally. Nil recitis. So what do we got here? Well, we have nothing you recite and want Marmikos to seem to be a poet. Whatsoever you want, so here we have the imperative form. Whatsoever you want, or in other words, you can be, estos, so it means you can be. You can be whatsoever you want, provided that you don't recite anything. And so, apparently, according to Marshall, Marmikos was a wannabe poet, and he's saying, you can do a lot of things, but you might want to give up poetry. Ouch. So once again, is you recite nothing, in other words, nothing of quality, and you want vis. So there's our second person singular. If we go back to our endings here, way back here, second person singular. So you want. So go back. So you recite nothing and want Mamicus, or we put it back in the nominative form, to seem to be a poet. In other words, you want to be a poet. Quidquid I would translate as whatsoever. That's how I learned it. You can be, so here's the esto, in other words, the imperative form. Or is that the subjunctive form? See, I kind of forget what esto is here. So go to Whitaker's words. is, been a while since I've seen ESTO. ESTO. I can put it up here. ESTO. Yeah, it is imperative. So future imperative. Future imperative. So we'll go back to is that you can be, right? I think we'll go with that. Or you will be whatsoever you wish, provided that you recite nothing. Right, so second person singular ending in S. Okay. All right. So yeah, I was able to go over that pretty quickly because I did it once already on Sunday. So it just shows you practice makes perfect. I think the other video was longer because that was my first time going through it, and this is how life works. So anyways, hopefully this audio recording works. Given the fact that there is a slight delay because of the technological gaffe, I will go ahead and post a discussion board, but obviously this video is not going to be available until midnight tonight. This is how it works, I guess, on YouTube. So watch this when you can, and then post questions accordingly. So next week we'll do chapter 33. The following week will be a review week. So I'll give you that week to study and ask questions. And then the following week after that will be the test. So sort of keep that in mind. Your first test will be on chapters 31, 32, 33. Not next week, because next week we're doing 33, not the week after, but the following week. So we still have plenty of time to learn this material. All right. Enjoy.